We've spent a lot of time talking about Northwestern's win over Nebraska, specifically the offense. Today, we're going to take a look at the defense and who stood out on that side of the ball.
You are Locked On Northwestern, your daily podcast on the Northwestern Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. This is Locked On Northwestern. I'm your host, Carter Bird. We are part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We are available wherever you get podcasts. It could be Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. You can find us there and you can listen to us for free. You can subscribe. Make sure you don't miss an episode. Same goes for the YouTube. Just search Locked On Northwestern. You can find us wherever or really on YouTube. If you just go to the search bar, subscribe. Don't want to miss any of our daily videos. So we've spent all this time talking about Northwestern's offense, the offensive line specifically, which I still think is the MVP position group of the game. Ryan Helinski, Evan Hull, all of those guys. Let's start to look at this defense. And let's start with some players that I think really stuck out in this game. And you really can't start anywhere else other than the Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week, and that is cornerback Cam Mitchell. He had 6 tackles, 4 solo tackles, 2 passes defended, and 1 interception in the game. Obviously, that led to him getting a Big Ten Defensive Player of the Week. He had a lengthy return there to set up the offense. But he's somebody that, when he's in the game, his impact is felt immediately. He had a huge play on a deep ball to Trey Palmer. Casey Thompson put it right on the money, and it was a great ball. It would have been a great catch, but it was just a better play by Cam Mitchell, and that's kind of who this guy is. That's kind of his role, is to be that guy, to be the unquestioned leader of this DBs group. Then you saw he got some love from Greg Newsome, the DB before him that went in the first round out of Northwestern. Calling him the best corner in college football. And, he has a chance to prove it this year. He's been so good already in his career, and this year is the chance to just take it to the next level. And he even goes on to say that. He tells Greg Newsome every time he talks to him that he's better than him. So this is his chance to prove it this year. Next up, Koko Azuma, safety. 8 tackles, 6 solo tackles, 1 sack, 2 tackles for a loss. He just brings a physical presence from that safety position. It feels like he's all over the field. Even though he only made 8 tackles and he had a sack and 2 tackles for a loss, it felt like he had 15 tackles. When he hits you, he makes sure you feel it. He got the first sack of the game for Northwestern, I believe. And it just felt like he was everywhere in this game. And that's what I saw when I went back and watched him previously. It felt like he was everywhere. It felt like he was very, very physical for his size, because he's not listed at a huge size. But he's out there and he can bring the wood, and he can lay the wood for sure. He's someone that I'm really, really, really starting to like, becoming a big, big fan of him. And I can't wait to see what the rest of the season looks like with him. He just continues to show what he's made of, and combine that with Cam Mitchell and A.J. Hampton. You obviously need Cam Mitchell and A.J. Hampton to stay healthy. They got a little banged up in the game. But getting those guys back, or getting all that group back in this secondary, is enormous. And that's part of the reason why I think this secondary going forward this year will be the strength of this defense. But next up, we move to the linebackers. Xander Mueller, 5 tackles, 2 solo tackles, 1 tackle for a loss, 1 pass defended, and an interception. Obviously, game-sealing interception. He has to make this list. Made some stops in there too. Really somebody who stepped up when the moment came to him. And you heard Pat Fitzgerald after the game say, big-time players make big-time plays. Well, Cam Mitchell and Xander Mueller made 2 of those big-time plays that helped really – Cam Mitchell's helped continue to swing momentum in Northwestern's favor. Xander Mueller's was the nail in the coffin on Nebraska's day. And what really, and we'll talk about it here later, was a pretty rough second half for that Nebraska offense. And then finally, the guy who is the leader of this linebackers group, and that is Bryce Gallagher. 10 tackles, 9 of those being solos. He's the team leader in tackles. He's definitely the leader of this linebacker group. He's the captain. You really expect nothing less. I mean, he's really picked up right where he left off, right where his brother left off before him. I mean, he's so solid up the middle in that defense, and I think he'll be somebody that continues to grow. I mean, he's probably my pick to lead this team in tackles on the year, but just having that rock solid guy in the middle of the defense to make sure everybody's where they need to be, make sure the defense is focused and ready, because he is that team captain, that leader role. I think that is invaluable as the rest of this season progresses. Those 4 guys stuck out the most to me. Obviously, there were other guys that made plays, and then they were like when AJ Hampton went out. I mean, there was some challenge there, and tested the depth early. Saw guys like Jeremiah Lewis get in there. He made some plays, but then he also had a bad penalty. But I think this defense, you'll see more guys emerge over the course of the year. And this is just week 0. This is just the beginning of this 2022 season. Coming up in just a second, we are going to take a look at the game itself, how the defense played it as a whole. And really, we might dive into how it compared to 2021. But first, let me tell you about our friends at BetOnline. BetOnline is your #1 source for all your pro and college football betting needs and sports info this season. Find all of the latest football league developments, game matchups, news, and podcasts, including this year's opening week's games. BetOnline is also your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and scores. The fastest and easiest way to check in on all your favorite sports and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, and golf. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, so as we keep going here, we're going to take a look at the entire defense and how they played in this second part of the show. And it starts with the fact that thing that jumped out to me when I looked at the stats is only 110 rushing yards allowed. You force 3 turnovers, and you limit Nebraska to 3.5 yards per carry. Those 2 things jumped out. I really think it was a tale of 2 halves. When you go back and look at it, I think Nebraska had 276-ish yard by my count. I had to go back and count because I can't find the complete half by half stats, so I had to do a little math on my own there. 276 yards in the first half, which is not ideal. It's on pace for 550 yards, but a little bit it's understandable. So much turnover on that offense, so many unknowns. New offensive coordinator. And you heard Pat Fitzgerald talk about it. You heard it talked about going into the game that they didn't have a full picture on what this Nebraska offense was going to look like. And boy, that first drive, Nebraska marched down the field, mostly through the air, and looked impressive doing it. And that was a moment where kind of watching it, keeping an eye on it, looked like it might start a repeat of the year before. It looked pretty foreboding. I had concerns. Especially after how I felt that these Northwestern DBs would stand up against Nebraska's receivers and Casey Thompson. Obviously, you had A.J. Hampton go down, which wasn't great. You had Cam Mitchell go down there for a little bit too. And it didn't look great in the first half. It didn't. But you found a way to only keep them to 14 points. And second half, defense started to stand up over the course of that second half. 188 yards allowed by my count. 119 of those yards are on the first two drives for Nebraska. So really only 69 yards the rest of the way after the first two drives of the second half. You only allowed 58 yards in the fourth quarter. It was really impressive. The defense got better as the game went on. They made Casey Thompson increasingly uncomfortable, forced him into mistakes. He threw both interceptions in the fourth quarter, and the defense really showed its mettle as the game went on. Showed that strength and conditioning that you've heard so much about before the game and especially after the game, because I think the impact is there. This Nebraska offense maybe wasn't as ready physically as this Northwestern defense. Northwestern did a lot of great work in the offseason with the strength and conditioning staff and dietitians, making sure that everybody's ready to roll, and it showed. And Northwestern on both sides of the ball got better as the game went on. Well, I kind of want to look at this game this year and how it stacked up to last year. Just because, Northwestern found a way to flip the script and go from losing by 49 to winning the game by 3. But it was really the defense that was the difference, because this year the defense allowed 465 yards, which, you can live with in modern college football. Probably love it to be a little lower, but they had 276 in the first half. So pretty strong showing by that Northwestern defense in the second half. Well, last year, the Northwestern defense allowed 657 yards. So you essentially allow 200 fewer yards in this game. This year you allow 355 passing yards. Last year you allowed 230 passing yards, but that's not who Nebraska was last year. If anything, that makes this next stat insane, incredible. The improvement from one year to the next in this one. 110 yards on the ground allowed by this Northwestern defense on Saturday. Well, last year, 427 yards allowed on the ground. And not only is that crazy, this year, 3.5 yards per carry were allowed. Last year, 8.1 yards per carry. So, they could run the ball twice. Every 2 rushes Nebraska had in 2021 was a first down. This year, they would have had to get 3 full rushes in order to get that first down. Much better performance up front in the run defense, the front 7. And it continued to show as you go down this list. This year, 8.5 yards per pass. Last year, 11 yards per pass. So, this Northwestern defense got better all across the board. You allow 2.5 yards fewer per pass. You allow nearly 5 yards fewer per rush. When you're doing that, when you're making that improvement, not only was it really bad the year before, but you've made significant strides. Last year, Northwestern failed to force a turnover, which doesn't help in a game like that where you are clearly overmatched in that one. This year, Northwestern forces 3 turnovers to go +2 in the turnover battle. This year, you allow 3 rushing touchdowns. Last year, you allow 7. Passing touchdown apiece this year and last year. 2 interceptions this year. 1 fumble recovered this year. Last year, it was 0 in both those categories. And when you look at it, when it totals out, 56 points allowed last year, 28 points allowed this year. Exactly half. And that's the story, is that the 2 places that this Northwestern team got better this year, specifically that changed the game, was the front 7 for Northwestern got a lot better on defense, and then the offensive line. And that's the story of how Northwestern went from a team that lost to Nebraska by 49 last year to a team that won by 3 this year, a 52-point swing. And it's really impressive that they were able to do that. And I think that it bodes well going forward if the offensive line is as good as they were on Saturday, and the defense continues to show the improvement that they showed in week 0. Then I like the trajectory of this Northwestern team moving forward the rest of the year. So coming up here in just a second, we're going to take a look at what Pat Fitzgerald said after the game. We're going to look at what Xander Mueller and Cam Mitchell said in the media, and how they felt about this defensive performance. So right off the bat, when we're going to start with Pat Fitzgerald, his comments post game about this Northwestern defense. Really, he talked about just the game in general, the atmosphere, the offense, Ryan Helinski. That was kind of how it progressed first. But then when he talked about the defense, he said this year, in this game, really every game, turnovers are a priority. They emphasize that every single day. And then he credited Cam Mitchell bouncing back with his interception after having the scramble play go against him. Kind of a weird play that was reminiscent of by Casey Thompson of a Johnny Manziel type play, or it really felt similar. And I saw people tweeting about it on Twitter. It was very Bo Nix-ish, like he did last year for Auburn against LSU. And Cam Mitchell bounces back, gets the big interception that helps swing momentum the other way, helps bring it all the way back. And Fitz said that he was very proud of the defense now they played. He said that championship Northwestern teams find ways to win that turnover battle, and this one did. And then he later on in his media availability after the game, his post-game press conference, he said that, look, as great as that offensive line has been, as much as they won the 6-inch war, the D-line did it too. The D-line did it too, and they are starting to look like the traditional Northwestern defensive lines of the Pat Fitzgerald era. And that's important, and it's something to absolutely build upon. And then he went on to say his final statement was, what won this game was conditioning, strength, and the offensive and defensive line. That was the difference in this game. And Northwestern won that 6-inch battle that Fitz preaches all the time. It's a game in the trenches about moving somebody 6 inches, and Northwestern was better at it than Nebraska, and he credited his team for going out and being that. So next up, you had Xander Mueller and Cam Mitchell meet with the media. Right off the bat, you heard them talk about the physicality is so important for this Northwestern defense, and they brought it. And Cam Mitchell said, hey, We went out there, and it was a dogfight, and it always is a dogfight with Nebraska. But this year's team is built to last. He said that they had a great game plan coming into the game, and he credited the staff for having them prepared to play in this game, to succeed in this game. And when this defense got punched in the mouth out the gate, there really wasn't panic. Xander Mueller said that they were ready to respond. And the conditioning, they knew that with their conditioning, they were going to be fresh late in the game. And it was a matter of with Nebraska. And it certainly seemed like Northwestern was in a better spot than that. Cam Mitchell talking about getting punched in the mouth. I mean, he said, hey, we knew we couldn't ride the roller coaster. There's going to be plenty of ups and downs in a game like this. Plenty of ups and downs. But we can't get caught up in the roller coaster. We have to stay even keel, stay focused on the next play, move forward. Well, and both guys obviously had the big interceptions. Obviously, it was Xander Mueller spoke on his, and he said that it felt great to be the one to kind of put the nail in the coffin for Nebraska. He said that on the sidelines, the coaches were talking. They were like, hey, they're going to put the ball in the air. Ball in the air, we got to come down with one. And Xander Mueller did. And he, Cam Mitchell, really credited the staff for having them prepared to make all the adjustments necessary to play in Ireland. And that was important. I mean, the team that can adjust to the external factors of the jet lag and everything was going to have an advantage. And it certainly seemed like Northwestern was definitely prepared. He also spoke about Greg Newsom pumping him up all over social media. He says that he tells me he's better than him every day. That Greg Newsom told him to go get an interception in this game. Go get one was the quote. And he did that. And, you love to see that. And something that both these guys spoke on was you're starting to see a lot of guys step up, especially on this defense as leaders. They're starting to emulate the leaders that came before them. I mean, just 2 years ago, this team won the Big Ten West. So there were standards set that maybe weren't met last year. And Xander singled out Cam Mitchell as a guy who has absolutely stepped up in that DB's room. But really, this group said that these two guys said that there's not really a better start to the season. They started 1-0. They got a win in week 0. They got a win in Ireland, international win. They got revenge for last year. 1-0. 1-0 in conference play. There's really nothing too negative. There's not a lot of negatives that you can take out of this game, but a whole lot of positives. And I mean, this Northwestern team, as a result, is better positioned than everybody thought coming into the year. And I thought that because the team doesn't get the attention that it probably deserves, as far as a Power 5 team, especially a Power 5 team so close to the city of Chicago. I don't think anybody paid attention really to the internal factors in this Northwestern program. The being able to get in the weight room, being able to get in the meeting room, for the first time in 2 years. The impact that has on a football team, the leadership, the guys that stepped up for this team, the level of focus. You really had to pay attention to this Northwestern team to see it coming. And they made a statement in week 0 rather, that they're back. And to what extent, we don't know yet, but they're going to be a tough out for everybody on the schedule. And they are going to be a scrappy, physical team that is hard to beat. White collar school, blue collar mentality. Pat Fitz continues to preach that. And I think that's going to be the story for this year. But thank you for joining Locked On Northwestern. Thank you for making Locked On Northwestern your first listen every day. We're available wherever you get podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever. We're on YouTube. Make sure wherever you listen, you subscribe so you don't miss an episode. But now let's talk about your second listen. Go check out the Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022, an 8-episode extravaganza to get you ready for the NFL season. The local team experts of the Locked On Podcast Network, plus a betting angle from Lee Sterling of Locked On Bets, all combining into one ultimate NFL preview. Search for Ultimate Pro Football Preview 2022 on your Odyssey app, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. So tomorrow, we're probably going to start to look at the week 2 opponent, because Duke does have a game this week. Duke is the week 2 opponent, and they're going to have a game this week. So we're going to look at that game. Maybe some stuff to keep an eye on. Then we might take a look at some of the other intriguing games around college football this weekend and just talk about thoughts on it and how, if they impact Northwestern, how they could impact Northwestern, and what that's going to look like this week. But thank you for joining. I'm your host, Carter Bird. You can follow me on Twitter at CarterBird13 and on Instagram at CarterBird13 as well. And I will see you next time.